The show opens up as the narrator talks about the dangers of being a half-blood as he stands in a rainy nighttime, looking at something. He then introduces himself as Percy Jackson, a 12-year-old kid with ADHD and dyslexia. A troubled kid, Percy is used to wrong things happening to him, from bad grades to being bullied constantly. He also sees things others can't, including a black Pegasus on a New York City rooftop, and a mechanical bronze rhino strolling down a busy street, not wanting to make himself a target for more bullying. He keeps these things secret until he makes a friend, Grover Underwood, who is just as much of an outcast as him. In the present day, Percy and his class take a field trip to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. There, his teacher, Mr. Brunner, lectures the students about Greek mythological figures from his wheelchair. As he admires a statue of Perseus, a flashback shows a young Percy and his mother standing in the same spot years prior. She reveals that Percy's name comes from the Greek hero, who similarly had an unbreakable bond with his mother. She also warns him that everyone who looks like a hero isn't a hero, and everyone who looks like a monster isn't a monster. When Percy snaps back to reality, his classmate, Nancy Bobofet, teases him about being special. Despite witnessing the kid getting bullied, his stern pre-algebra teacher, Mrs. Dodds, admonishes him to exercise more self-control. Thankfully, Mr. Brunner comes to his aid, gifting Percy a ballpoint pen and telling him that the gods will tell him their plans when he is ready to hear. Later, Percy and Grover eat their lunch near the fountain outside while debating how to handle Nancy's bullying. When she throws some food at them, Percy leaps to his feet to confront her. But even before he can touch her, Nancy is thrown back telekinetically into the fountain, and the pen Mr. Brunner gave him begins to glow and vibrate in his pocket. A few seconds later, the confused kid hears Mrs. Dodds ominous saying that it was only a matter of time before they found him. As she walks toward Percy, she transforms into a terrifying winged creature named Alecto, one of the three Furies in Greek mythology, but only Percy can see her for what she is. The terrifying creature asks the whereabouts of a magical artifact without naming it, and pounces on Percy. Just then, the ballpoint pen Mr. Brunner gave him becomes a glowing sword, and stabs Alecto in the abdomen. She disintegrates into dust before her talons can reach the kid's throat. Scared and confused, Percy wakes up, asking what happened to Mrs. Dodds. However, Mr. Brunner arrives at the scene and tells him there's no one there by that name. In the wake of the Nancy Bobofet debacle, Percy finds himself in the headmaster's office along with Grover. He reiterates that he didn't touch Nancy, but Grover claims he saw Percy push Nancy into the fountain. Stunned, our hero has no reply whatsoever, and thus is suspended after the meeting. As he waits for his ride home, Mr. Brunner says he suspects that Percy is special but that he has a challenging journey ahead of him. Following this, the freshly expelled kid arrives at his mom's apartment, which she shares with her boyfriend, Gabe Ugliano. He and Percy briefly exchange heated words after Gabe berates the kid for getting kicked out of school. Fed up, Percy finds solace in his mother, Sally, who believes her son and is just happy that he is home. She gives him a welcome home gift, and he admits he is scared as something is happening to him. However, Sally seems to know more than what she's speaking out loud. She tells Gabe that she and Percy are going to their favorite vacation spot in Montauk. During the commute, Percy has a dream about a mysterious, ominous, disembodied voice. He suddenly awakens at the cabin in Montauk and confesses that his daydreams have felt more real than ever lately. Then, his mother drops a truth bomb on him. She reveals that they come to this cabin every year because it is where she met his father. He was kind, wise, and unlike any other man because he wasn't a man. He was a god. Following this, Sally tells Percy that the Greek myths she shared with him are accurate, and that he is a half-blood, a demigod, the offspring of a god and a mortal. However, demigods are unsafe, as they begin to attract terrible forces once they reach a certain age. These forces seek to harm and eliminate demigods before they become too powerful. On the other hand, Percy refuses to believe anything, and argues that there's just something wrong with his brain. Suddenly, Grover arrives at the cabin in a panic. Instead of his usual legs, Grover is now walking on 2 goat legs. Before Percy can fully process the startling sight, his friend warns that something dangerous is coming. Following this, the three hop in the car to make a run for a nearby safe destination. During their car ride, Grover reveals that he is a satyr, a half-goat, half-man who is in charge of Percy's protector. He tells Percy he got them kicked out of school because he wouldn't have survived the night otherwise. According to the satyr, the only safe place now is a camp somewhere nearby on Long Island. But after a sudden lightning strike, a mythical minotaur, a deadly half-bull, half-man of ferocious power, appears and chases the car through the storm. The terrifying creature rams the vehicle, sending it careening off the road. After emerging from the demolished car, Sally attempts to distract the minotaur to give Percy and Grover a head start. She then takes Percy's jacket, which reeks of half-blood, in an attempt to distract the Minotaur and give the others more time to cross the camp's boundary. As Percy watches from afar, the Minotaur lifts his mother into the air and squeezes, and Sally Jackson disintegrates into a cloud of dust. Heartbroken and enraged, Percy notices Mr. Brunner's ballpoint pen vibrating in his pocket. He pulls it out, revealing the glowing sword, Riptide, and slashes at the imposing beast. However, the Minotaur swats the sword away, and Percy climbs atop the monster's shoulders. He breaks off one of the beast's horns and plunges his weapon into its head. Just like Sally, the behemoth crumbles into dust. The action takes a toll on Percy, who passes out in the woods. Later, he awakens at Camp Half-Blood, with a handful of campers surrounding him. There, a centaur, a half-man half-horse version of Mr. Brunner, welcomes the kid to the camp, but he passes out once more. When Percy awakens again, a concerned-looking Grover is by his side. On a table across the room is the severed Minotaur horn, and the realization that the events of the previous night were real hits Percy hard. He gets dressed with the intention of finding his father and runs into the camp director, Dionysus, commonly called Mr. D, an uncaring and uncooperative man. Mr. Brunner, now known as Chiron, also arrives in his horse form and asks Percy to walk with him. Following this, Chiron leads Percy across the expansive camp past fellow campers doing various activities. The young boy believes he lost the pen sword Chiron gave him, but the centaur reveals that no matter what, it will always make its way back to him as long as he never surrenders it willingly. After a while, the duo arrives near a collection of 12 cabins arranged in a semicircle in the woods. Each cabin is dedicated to one of the 12 Olympian gods and houses the children claimed by that god. Percy learns that some children in the camp never get claimed and wonders if there's a place for him there. The unclaimed children sleep alongside the children of Hermes, so Chiron takes him to that god's cabin. Inside, Percy meets Luke, a slightly older kid who has been claimed by Hermes, and the two immediately bond. The following day, Percy wakes up from another dream in which an eerie, disembodied voice taunts him about his father leaving him. Luke tells him that nightmares, ADHD, dyslexia, and daydreams are all common among demigods because they process reality differently than mortals. Furthermore, he suggests his new friend focus on the demigod tradition of gaining glory for himself, as glory earns campers respect among their peers. At that moment, Percy meets Clarisse LaRue, an aggressive older camper who's a daughter of Ares, the god of war. She bumps into Percy and shoves him to the ground, unimpressed by his exploits with the Minotaur. After this encounter, the new kid learns that gaining glory will get him respect around camp and might also get his godly father to claim him. In an attempt to gain glory, Percy tries his hand at several new skills, including archery and metalworking. However, it becomes quite clear that none of these skills suits him. At dinner, Luke and his friends tell Percy that offerings of their favorite food items, along with prayers, help draw the gods' attention. That night, Percy offers some of his blue candy in an attempt to speak to his mom about his time at camp. He's angry that his father has ignored them and vows to make him take notice. After returning to camp, Clarisse and two fellow kids of Ares capture Percy and shove him into a bathroom. Still unimpressed with the new kid, Clarisse wants him to admit he lied about his experience with the Minotaur. As her friends shove Percy toward a toilet, 3 streams of water shoot out of it and violently knock the 3 bullies across the room. Just as they run away, Percy sees a girl named Annabeth, who's been watching him from near the door. She admits to stalking him to see if his abilities are unique enough to help her win a game of Capture the Flag. Later, Luke explains that, before he arrived at camp, he was alone on the road with a forbidden girl named Thalia. The 3 gods, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades had made a pact to no longer sire children because of how powerful their offspring were, which made them the constant targets of powerful monsters. However, Zeus broke the agreement by conceiving Thalia, which is why she was one of the forbidden children. Next, Luke continues that he and Thalia met Annabeth in an alley and brought her to Camp Half-Blood, but Thalia didn't make it. Because of this, he and Annabeth have been close ever since. It is revealed that Annabeth is the best fighter in camp and wants to prove herself by going on a quest. She kept close tabs on Percy because of a prophecy stating that a demigod fated to go on an important quest would arrive in camp. The fated quest is the only one Chiron would let Annabeth join, so she closely watched all new camp arrivals to see if they were the one. Not long afterwards, Percy plays his first game of Capture the Flag, an honored camp tradition that allows campers to hone their fighting skills. In the competition, Percy, Luke, and Annabeth's blue team square off against Clarisse's red team. Just as the game begins, Annabeth reveals her cap of invisibility, a gift from her mother, Athena, to her teammate. Shortly afterwards, Percy is confronted by Clarisse and her cronies, who want revenge after the bathroom incident. The vengeful girl quickly gets the upper hand, slashing at the new kid with her spear. But an injured Percy flees to the banks of the nearby river, where the fight continues. Surprisingly, Percy breaks Claris's spear and, by distracting her, allows his team to capture the red team's flag. Just as the blue team secures victory, Annabeth reappears, removing her invisibility cap, and pushes Percy into the river. Soaked, he stands up angrily, but his demeanor changes as his wounds heal rapidly. Suddenly, a large trident floats above Percy's head, indicating that the Olympian god, Poseidon, has claimed Percy as his son. Following this, Chiron announces that Percy is the only forbidden child of the sea god among all demigods. But he is the only hope to prevent a fledgling war brewing between Zeus and Poseidon over the theft of the latter's master bolt, a prized possession Zeus believes Percy has stolen. If the bolt isn't returned in 1 week, war will break out between the gods of Olympus, destroying the world. But Chiron believes the bolt is with Hades, who has always had animosity towards Zeus and Poseidon. Percy learns he must leave camp and embark on a quest with 2 other companions to retrieve the Master Bolt from the Underworld before the summer solstice. However, Percy refuses to help his absentee father and affirms his loyalty to his mother. Suddenly, Grover arrives and, against Chiron and Mr. D's wishes, tells Percy that his mother is still alive in the Underworld with Hades. It is only then that the kid realizes he has the unique opportunity to rescue his mother and agrees to take on the quest. Immediately after accepting his quest, Percy consults an oracle, a being who has the ability to cast prophecies, to finalize it. The mummy-like corpse of the oracle spews out green smoke, revealing an image of his mother's boyfriend, Gabe. The image reveals a prophecy laced with both positive and negative news. It says Percy shall go west and face the god who has turned into a villain. He will also find what was stolen and see it safely returned. However, he will be betrayed by a friend and fail to save what matters most in the end. With Percy's quest confirmed by the oracle, Chiron assembles several of Camp Half-Blood's most qualified candidates as potential quest companions. They include Percy's new friend, Luke, Camp Bully Claris, and the daughter of Athena, Annabeth. Without wasting any time, Percy immediately chooses Annabeth, who has vied to go on a quest for years. He also picks someone not in Chiron's lineup, his satyr protector and best friend, Grover. Despite the oracle's warning that a friend will betray Percy, he trusts Grover. He also knows Annabeth will do whatever it takes to ensure that they complete the quest. Before Percy sets out on his first quest, Luke gives him a pair of winged sneakers, a gift from his father, Hermes. Before leaving, Annabeth rests a hand on the magical tree that prevents monsters from entering the camp and says they might survive the quest if the others listen to her. They then leave the relative safety of Camp Half-Blood and pass through New York City. While they travel by bus, Grover tells Percy that quests are world-defining events. They've made and broken empires, altered the course of human civilization, and changed the balance of power on Olympus. Shortly afterwards, the bus pulls into a gas station where Annabeth disembarks to grab snacks for the trio. She says the stinky bathroom of the bus will block monsters from smelling Percy, so he's safest inside. On the other hand, Grover adds that, as a child of one of the big three, Percy is at the most risk and explains that monsters often sense a demigod's greatest weakness and try to exploit it. At that moment, Mrs. Dodds, or the monster Alecto, whom Percy had vaporized in front of the Met Museum earlier, sits on the bus. An invisible Annabeth sits beside her, and the two trade words over their history together. The monster then reveals she was hired by Hades, as Annabeth deduces, to collect Percy quickly and quietly. If Annabeth gives Percy up, she will allow her and Grover to continue their quest unimpeded. Next, Alecto reveals her proper form, unseen by the other human passengers. Fortunately, Annabeth vaporizes her with a quick throw of her knife, and the trio escapes into the forests of New Jersey. There, Grover leads them down an old satyr path once taken by his uncle Ferdinand. Fearing that their plan might get derailed, Percy complains, but Annabeth reminds him that quests are not supposed to be easy and wonders what he fears. Suddenly, Grover says he smells hamburgers and follows the irresistible scent to a burger joint in the middle of the woods called Auntie M's. Scattered around the shop's grounds are what look like realistic stone statues, but Annabeth quickly recognizes them not as statues, but as people who have been turned to stone. In an unexpected twist, Alecto returns and says Annabeth should have taken her up on her offer. Percy unsheathes Riptide, but another woman arrives on the scene. A fancy hat obscures her face as she makes her way through the maze of statues toward the trio. Alarmed, Annabeth and Grover immediately shield their eyes as she approaches, and Percy follows suit. Next, the mysterious woman offers to help resolve their situation and invites them all inside. Alecto, who has also turned away from the woman, declines. She says the monster won't harm the trio while they're with her but won't leave either, as that would mean failure. She then introduces herself as one of the most notorious and well-known monsters in Greek mythology, the tragic and legendary Medusa. Percy chooses to go with the mysterious woman, remembering the stories his mom told him about Medusa. Inside Auntie M's are a collection of snacks waiting for them. Annabeth says dealing with Medusa is different for her than for Percy and Grover, but Medusa states that she wouldn't hold a grudge against her simply because she is the daughter of Athena. Unlike the widespread perception of a monster, Medusa refers to herself as a survivor and says that she hates bullies. When bullies arrive at her doorstep, they end up staying there longer than they anticipated as her sight turns them to stone. Shortly afterwards, Medusa tells them that Athena was everything to her. She prayed to and worshipped the goddess with no acknowledgement in return. One day, Poseidon gave Medusa some attention and told her that he loved her. Feeling slighted, Athena punished Medusa over what she saw as an embarrassment. She vowed that no one could ever see Medusa and live to talk about it. However, Annabeth defends her mother's actions, calling them just. But Medusa says that the gods are bullies and want mortals to believe they're infallible despite their shortcomings. The young girl calls her a liar, and Medusa retreats to the kitchen. Just as Percy follows her, Annabeth warns Grover to get ready to run. In the kitchen, Medusa tells Percy that Annabeth will betray him. She tells him she feels a kinship with his mother, as Poseidon targeted them both. She then questions if Percy's friends will allow him to rescue his mother if it interferes with the quest. To ensure that Percy succeeds in rescuing her, she offers to remove the others from the equation. Without wasting further time, Percy bolts, and Medusa removes her hat. She checks to see if Alecto is still outside so that she can corner the kids. Meanwhile, the trio finds themselves in the basement of Auntie M's, faced with a sea of statues whose faces are contorted in terror. Grover dons the winged sneakers Luke gave Percy to execute a plan. But the shoes have a mind of their own and carry him away. Shortly afterwards, Medusa arrives in the basement, her snake-filled hair slithering and hissing ominously. She tells Percy he could have chosen to stand up for his mother rather than do his questionable father's bidding. Medusa then says she'll make an example out of him and Annabeth by shipping their statues to Olympus. Following this, Percy wields his sword, Riptide, and faces Medusa with his eyes closed. Grover, still unable to control the winged sneakers, crashes into a nearby statue, distracting her. Taking advantage of this, Annabeth sneaks up behind her and places her invisibility cap on her head, making Medusa invisible. Percy then slashes his sword, and a sharp yelp is heard, followed by a heavy thud. Next, Percy finds the invisible severed head and carries it outside. Seeing the kids alone, Alecto swoops in. But as she comes close, Percy removes the cap, revealing Medusa's severed head. The monster instantly turns to stone and crashes into the ground, breaking into several pieces. After the dust settles, Annabeth confronts Percy about his mother being alive and questions his intentions for accepting the quest, noting that she shouldn't have heard about it from Medusa. Percy counters, reminding her of Alecto's offer on the bus. However, Grover steps in and defends them both to the other, arguing that he's been trying to keep their quest on track without upsetting either of them. However, Grover asks his friend the same question Annabeth asked in the forest. What's he afraid of? Percy admits that the oracle told him that a friend would betray him, and that he'll fail to save what matters most in the end. He then reveals that he chose Annabeth for the quest because he never saw himself befriending her. Meanwhile, he chose Grover because he thought Grover would always be on his side, no matter what. He says now he feels alone and doesn't know who to trust. After the truth is revealed, Annabeth and Percy admit to the offers they were given by the monsters. With Grover's help, they realize that they'll never indeed be alone if they stick together or else they won't make it. On the other hand, Percy devises a plan to ship Medusa's head to Olympus as a tribute to the gods, against Annabeth and Grover's wishes. He removes the invisibility cap from the head and gives it back to Annabeth, so she still has a piece of her mother to carry with her. Elsewhere, a sneaker-wearing delivery man carries a box into the Empire State Building, where he pushes the button for the magical 600th floor in the elevator. It is revealed that this mysterious character is Hermes, who is carrying the box addressed to the gods from Percy. However, unlike the demigod kid intended, the god doesn't look happy. In a flashback scene, a younger Percy learns to swim with his mother, Sally. Percy is scared and clings to the edge, but his mother tells him that it's essential for him to learn. After another dream where he hears the same evil, disembodied voice from his previous nightmares, present-day Percy awakens on a train. He then questions the methods demigod children have to employ to get attention from their divine parents. On the other hand, Annabeth reveals that Athena created her from a thought in the goddess mind. The goddess then gave the kid to a mortal man she'd fallen in love with as a gift, but once her father started a traditional family, He no longer treated her like a gift, so she ran away from home. The following day, someone vandalizes the trio's train cabin while they're at breakfast. Security speaks with a woman from a neighboring cabin and detains them on suspicion of vandalism. Shortly afterwards, the woman carries a growling animal in a hand carrier and reveals herself as Echidna, the mother of monsters. While Echidna argues that the demigods are more monstrous than herself, the baby monster in her carrier picks up the kid's scents and attacks. Annabeth stabs it with her knife, after which the kids exit the train and flee into St. Louis. There, they make for the Gateway Arch, a sanctuary dedicated to Annabeth's mother, Athena, which monsters can't enter. At the sanctuary, Annabeth suggests that Percy try to communicate with his father. However, Percy refuses, adamant that he wants nothing from Poseidon, who he says has had his chance to be a part of his son's life. As they talk, Percy suddenly collapses, finally feeling the poison from the monster's sting. Following this, Annabeth and Grover take Percy to a fountain outside and splash him with water, hoping it will heal him. But, as it's not fresh, running water, it doesn't have the intended effect. Instead, they decide to head up to the top of the arch and ask Athena for help. Meanwhile, Echidna arrives at the arch with her monster, the Chimera. As they ride to the top, Grover wonders how the monster got inside the landmark unless Athena allowed it. Annabeth reveals Echidna spoke to her telepathically, telling her that her impertinence, taking part in sending Medusa's head to Olympus, wounded Athena's pride. She tells Annabeth that impertinence will be her doom. As they ride to the top, Grover wonders how the monster got inside the landmark unless Athena allowed it. Annabeth reveals Echidna spoke to her telepathically, telling her that taking part in sending Medusa's head to Olympus wounded Athena's pride. Because of this childish act, their task is set to doom. After a few minutes, Echidna and the Chimera, a terrifying fire-breathing hybrid of a lion and goat, arrive at the top of the arch. The pale and weak Percy decides to take on the Chimera himself, wielding his bronze sword, Riptide. During their fight, Echidna uses her powers to rip a hole in the arch's floor, which Percy tumbles out of. However, he doesn't fall as he clings to a beam for dear life, 630 feet above the ground. As Echidna and the Chimera watch, he loses his grip, and our hero seemingly plunges to his death. From Percy's perspective, he plummets to the ground, tumbling through the air. Suddenly, a waterspout suddenly appears over the nearby Mississippi River and collides with the kid, splashing him down into the river. Underneath the water, Percy's foot gets stuck on the sandy bottom, and he panics until he realizes he's not alone. In the final scene, a water spirit called a Nereid appears and tells Percy that Poseidon sent her. She then urges him to breathe, revealing that the god wants him to know that he will be alright. Additionally, the Nereid also tells Percy that Poseidon has been with him the whole time, struggling not to interfere. At those words, Percy inhales deeply, realizing for the first time that he has the power to breathe underwater. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on the notification, and leave 1,000 likes or 100 comments if you'd like us to continue part 2. Thank you.